So in this next video, we'll be looking at how the pieces move. So first, we will look at the pawns. So if you watched the last video, you know that these right here are the pawns. And so, a pawn just moves straight ahead. A pawn just goes straight ahead. On its first move, it can go up 2 pieces. Only on its first move, it can move up 2 pieces. So, it hasn't moved yet. It can go 2 pieces, but if it moved here, it can't go 2 pieces. It can only move up by 1. And the pawns, they don't take head on, they take diagonally forward. Pawns can't go backwards at all. They go diagonally forward. So if another pawn was right here, this pawn couldn't take it. But if a pawn was right here, this pawn could be able to take that one. Also, if this pawn moved up here, this pawn could take that one. But if this pawn was here, this pawn would not be able to take it. There's this rule called en passant. It's pretty tricky to understand, but if you don't understand it, don't worry. It's not a massive part of chess when you're a beginner. So, en passant is, if this pawn moved up here, right, and then black pushed this pawn up 2 squares, then white would be able to move to this square and take this pawn. En passant can only happen if the piece you're taking moved 2 squares. So, if this happened when you didn't take, and you just did this, and then this happened, you could not use en passant. Only if this happened. Now we'll look at how the rooks move. The rook can move horizontally in any direction and vertically in any direction for as many squares as it wants to. So, if a rook was here, it could move here. If a rook was here, it could still move here. Like, it wouldn't be able to move here because that's diagonal. So, it can move here because it can go for as many squares as it wants horizontally and vertically. Now we look at the movement of the bishops. Each side has 2 bishops, so one on a light square and one on a dark square. And your light square bishop, if you set up the board correctly, should be on the right side of your board for both white and black. So you see, this is my light colored or light squared bishop. It's on the right side, and my dark squared bishop is on the left. If we flip the board, we can see, if I've done correctly, this bishop should be on the light square, and this bishop should be on the dark square. And now, how do the bishops move? So, we found out that the rooks can move any direction horizontally for as long as they want, while the bishops can move any direction diagonally for as many squares as they want to. So if the bishop was here, it could diagonally move here. If the bishop was here, it could move diagonally up here. It would not be able to move straight because it can only move diagonally. And as for the bishop on the dark square, it's the same thing, just moving any direction diagonally for as long as you want to move it. As you can see, it's the same with the black side, moving diagonally, and it just moves diagonally. That's all the bishop does. And now for the knight. The knight is one of the trickiest pieces to understand in chess, probably the trickiest piece to understand. The first thing you should know is that the knight can jump over pieces, other pieces. For example, if we put a rook here, but there's a bishop blocking it, the knight wouldn't be able to go this way. It can't go this way. But if the rook was here and the knight was here, the knight could just jump right over the rook. And now for the movement of the knight, especially when you start, you should use a counting method. This is a counting method I use. I don't know if there are any other ones, but this is one I use. So you move any direction horizontally or vertically 2 squares. So for the first step of moving, you can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then the next step, I say and a half. So it's 1, 2, and a half. So you'll go 1, 2, and here a half wouldn't be going diagonally or anything. It would be moving 1 square in a perpendicular fashion of your first 2 moves. So since we moved 1, 2, perpendicular would be going like this. You can move up 1 square, or you can move down 1 square after counting 1, 2, then a half is just being a perpendicular motion. And so here you could go 1, 2. What are the 2 movements you have to do to finish your knight? You have 2 options. Try to get both of them. To finish the motion of your knight, it would be moving here, or it would be moving here, because we were here, we went 1, 2, and then since we did in a half, that would be in a perpendicular motion from going up. So we'd move 1 square to the side. Then it'd be the same here, 1, 2, and then in a half would just be going up and down since we were moving to the left. You could either move up or down, it's your choice where you want to move it. And you cannot just move your knight 1, 2, then stop. You have to go 1, 2, and a half. You have to complete the full movement. Then here, it's the same, 1, 2, and then since we're going down, perpendicular would be left or right. So we go left or right, it's your choice. And now for the movement of the queens. The queens are the most powerful piece on a chessboard. So with the queen, if a rook could make that move, the queen can do it, and if a bishop could make that move, the queen could do it. For example, the bishop right here, right? The bishop can make this move, and so the queen could also make that move. And for the rook could make this move. And so if the queen was in the place of the rook, it could also make this move. What you should ask yourself when moving your queen is if a rook or a bishop was there, depending if you want to move it diagonally or horizontally and vertically. You should ask yourself, if you want to move it horizontally, you should ask if a rook was there, could it make that move? If yes, the queen can do it. And if you want to move diagonally, you should ask yourself, could a bishop make this move? And if yes, then the queen can also make that move. And now for the king. The king can move 1 square only in any direction it wants to. So if the king goes here, it could move here, it could move here, it could move here, 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 and here. So that's how you move all the pieces on a chessboard. And it's time to start playing chess.